10 Sinister Small-Town Horror Tales, revealed secrets of haunted places and cursed lives. In Eldridge Hollow, nights held a sinister grip on the town, where shadows danced between the white picket fences and whispered dark secrets. Claire, a hard-working single mother in her mid-30s, felt the chill every time she walked home from the diner after her night shifts. As she trudged along the dirt roads, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Who lurked behind those shuttered windows? What wicked souls haunted the Edgar house across the street? It loomed like a specter, a grim reminder of the town's hidden horrors, and she couldn't help but feel trapped within its grasp. Everything changed the night her son, Tommy, came home wide-eyed, speaking of Mr. Redmond, the recluse next door. Tommy's innocent charm had somehow drawn this man, a figure whispered about in hushed tones, into his world. "He talks about ghosts, Mom. And monsters," Tommy exclaimed, giggling. But for Claire, a shiver ran down her spine. Something about Mr. Redmond unsettled her, like he was a part of the darkness that clung to Eldridge Hollow. Days turned into weeks, and Tommy's fascination grew. Claire noticed bizarre happenings: the neighbors' pets vanishing without a trace, ominous sounds echoing in the night, and her own nightmares clawing at her every time she closed her eyes. Faces warped in her dreams, grinning with elongated jaws, always leaving her breathless with fear. Was it true what the townsfolk said? That shadows were alive? Did the Edgar house still hunger for secrets lost? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That stormy night, lightning cracked the sky, illuminating their living room for mere seconds. Claire watched as Tommy laughed, enthralled by the swirling winds and the booming thunder. But then, a low voice, a whisper, eerie and dark, slithered through the walls from next door, mingling with the storm. "Tommy, come play," it said, each syllable twisting like a branch clawing at her sanity. Her heart raced. Panic surged through her as she bolted to the hallway, closing the distance to Tommy's room. He stood at the window, staring into the tempest, entranced. "Mom," he said, "he has a secret to show me." Tommy's voice was sweet, innocent, but it cut through the air like ice. "Tommy, no. Come here," she shouted, fear suffocating her words. She could feel the walls of their home pressing in, as if the ground beneath them sensed the awakening of something dark and ancient. As the storm roared, fear clawed at her throat. She had to save him. Something was wrong, something was lurking just beyond the veil of darkness separating them from Mr. Redmond. Had she been so exhausted that she was imagining everything? Or was there a truth buried deep in the mysteries of Eldridge Hollow? As the storm raged on, Claire steeled herself, knowing she had to act. But the moment she grabbed Tommy's hand, the lights flickered and died, plunging them into pitch-black terror. A chill swept through the air, thick and suffocating. Just then, her phone rang, vibrating against the table. A different kind of dread washed over her as she picked it up. "You have to stop looking into the past. It doesn't want to be found." The voice was distorted, echoing with a sinister undertone, as the line clicked dead. Claire stood frozen, heart racing, knowing in that moment that Eldridge Hollow was more than just a town. It was a predator, hungry for the lives caught in its sinister web. What had she unleashed? What truths lurked within the shadows, ready to consume them both? Darkness enveloped Claire and Tommy like a funeral shroud. The air crackled with tension, charged and alive, making each of Claire's breaths feel like a struggle against an unseen foe. She clutched Tommy's hand tightly, their connection grounding her in the face of overwhelming dread. "Stay close," she whispered, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. The weight of the silence threatened to crush her. "We're going to get out of here." But the walls seemed to pulse in response, as if the very house was listening. with no light to guide them, they made their way to the living room, only to be met by the chilling sound of laughter drifting through the walls. It wasn't Tommy's childish giggle, it was deeper, more sinister. Each guffaw echoed with malice, sending icy fingers crawling up her spine. "Mom," Tommy whispered, his voice tight with fear. "What is that?" Claire's heart sank. She wanted to reassure him, to tell him it was just the storm, but the laughter twisted her stomach. "I don't know, honey. Just stay with me." They crept toward the front door, the beam from her phone barely cutting through the oppressive darkness. As she hesitated, torn between looking back and pushing forward, a guttural voice whispered back from the shadows, "You can't leave. You belong to me now." The words curled around her like smoke, settling into her mind. It felt like a threat and a promise all at once. "Let us go," she urged, tugging Tommy toward the door. Just then, a loud crash rang through the house, coming from the kitchen. The sound seemed to reverberate from the very foundations, shaking her confidence. As she turned to look, the air thickened with the scent of something burnt, acrid and sharp. "Mom!" Tommy cried, pointing toward the kitchen. The shadows inside flickered, almost as if they were alive, bending and warping around the corners of the room. With a fierce determination, she rushed them both toward the door, praying it would swing open. Claire's fingers grasped the cold handle. She shoved the door, but it wouldn't budge. She slammed her shoulder into it, desperation fueling her strength. "Come on!" she shouted, the sound rising above the storm's howl. Tommy tugged at her, his small voice breaking through a breathless whisper, "What if Mr. Redmond is in there?" "Don't worry about him," she snapped, urgency bubbling to the surface. Something dark and electric thrummed all around her. Suddenly, the laughter returned, this time louder, coming from all directions. It echoed through the walls, mocking her. That sinister voice slid close. "You can't run from me, Claire. Your son is so much fun." An icy touch grazed her back, and Claire recoiled, fighting back the nausea threatening to swallow her whole. She spun, catching a glimpse, a shadow darting past her, slipping into the corner of her eye but disappearing before she could turn fully. "Mom!" Tommy cried again, fear leaking into his voice. She turned back to him, heart racing. She had to protect him. She couldn't falter. With one last desperate push, Claire flung herself against the door and it finally gave way. They stumbled outside into the storm, the rain soaking them immediately. The air felt alive, charged with energy, drawing them back toward the shadowy confines of their home. "Run!" she screamed, clutching Tommy's hand, dragging him away from the house, the growing dread clawing at her heels. Together, they raced into the deluge, the lightning illuminating the twisted forms of the trees as if they were reaching for something just beyond the veil of rain. Just then, a flash of red lace caught her eye among the cascading water. Was that a figure? A woman in the woods? Claire's breath hitched. She halted mid-run, the pull of something ancient screaming in her veins. "What now?" Tommy choked out, eyes wide in terror and confusion. At that moment, a blood-curdling scream erupted from the Edgar house behind them, rising above the storm. Claire stopped, paralyzed. That was Tommy's scream calling back to her. It was as if the very spirit of Eldridge Hollow had awakened and was now asking them to join in its dark games. "Mom!" Tommy's voice trembled again, a beacon of innocence in chaos. What had they awakened? What secrets lay ahead? As thunder rumbled ominously overhead, Claire felt the ground shift beneath her. She knew the worst was yet to come. But there, in the distance, flickered a light, a beacon of hope or doom. Only one way to find out. The rain fell harder, each drop striking the ground like a tiny hammer. Claire's heart pounded in her ears. The light in the distance flickered and danced, beckoning her and Tommy forward. It promised safety, or perhaps a way to understand the chaos they had unleashed. "What is that?" Tommy whispered, pulling back slightly. Shadows from the trees appeared to stretch toward them, twisting and writhing like livid serpents. "I don't know," Claire said, her throat dry. But something inside her whispered to go toward it. "We have to find out. It's better than standing here." They sprinted, mud sucking at their feet. With each step, Claire felt as if invisible eyes were watching, judging, waiting for her to slip. The laughter from the house faded into a sinister echo, replaced by a deep silence that seemed to thrum with unearthly energy. Finally, they reached the source of the light. It emerged through the trees, a dilapidated gazebo, draped in tattered white fabric. The fabric flapped wildly in the wind, revealing a sight that made her stomach roll. Inside the gazebo stood a figure, swaying slowly as if caught in a trance. The rain beat down on her, soaking through the lace of her dress, a vivid scarlet against the white backdrop. "Is that a lady?" Tommy asked, squinting. He seemed mesmerized, his small body pushing forward despite Claire's grip tightening around his hand. "Stay back, Tommy," she urged, feeling the tremor of dread ripple through her. "We shouldn't go near her." But the figure turned. A shock of fear hit Claire like crashing waves as a wicked smile curled across the woman's lips. "Hello," she rasped, her voice like shredded silk, slicing through the air. "I've been waiting for you." "Mom, I don't like this." Tommy's voice trembled, but he remained rooted to the ground, caught between fear and innocent curiosity. "What do you want?" Claire shouted over the wind, panic bubbling just beneath her skin. Wild thoughts raced through her mind. Was she a victim? An enemy? The woman's eyes glowed like twin lanterns in the dark, piercing through the rain. "I want what you promised to give." "What are you talking about?" Claire took a step back, trying to shield Tommy behind her. "Your son is so special, just like the others," she murmured, twisting her fingers as she spoke. "But you know that, don't you? You felt it." Something darted around Claire, a shadow, just out of sight. Her breath quickened. The house in the distance felt less like a ghost now and more like a hungry beast waiting to pounce. "You're wrong," Claire shouted, almost pleading. "I want to let you take him. We just want to go home." "Home?" The figure cackled, laughter coating her words in malice. "You can't go home, sweet Claire. Not after what you've done. You awakened us all." The ground shuddered as if responding to the figure's words. Claire realized with dawning horror that something was not just following them, it was here, in the woods, fierce and alive, and the woman was its avatar, its voice. "Mom, please." Tommy's voice broke, pulling her focus back to him. He was trembling, tears pooling in his wide, innocent eyes. "I'm scared." The laughter echoed around them again, swirling like a gust of wind, taunting, delighting in their fear. "Join us," the woman beckoned, extending her arms wide as if to embrace them. "Let me show you the truth." Before Claire could respond, a piercing scream erupted from the depths of the forest, raw and primal. It cut through the air, wrapping around her heart like a vice. "Run!" she screamed, yanking Tommy's hand. Now there was no time to think, only the instinct to escape. They dashed into the woods, the shadows around them swirling and flickering with each flash of lightning. The woman's laughter faded, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. As they ran, Claire could feel something out there, hunting them, a malevolent force awakened in the dark. The path spiraled into a maze of terror. Where would they go? What would come for them next? The truth was lurking in the shadows, and it was hungry. And then it came, another scream, echoing through the trees behind them. Not just a scream, but a chorus of cries, a chilling reminder that they were not alone. "What is happening?" Tommy cried, stumbling through the mud. Claire only gripped his hand tighter, fear gnawing at her insides. "I don't know," she gasped, trying to think as dread swelled around them. "We have to keep moving." But with every step they took, the darkness felt more alive, more suffocating. The laughter began again, wrapping around them like a shroud. "Mom!" Tommy's eyes were full of terror. Help me. Where to turn? What to do? The question loomed. Would they escape the forest or be consumed by the darkness that awaited? The answer felt just beyond their reach. Branches cracked underfoot as Claire ran deeper into the woods, dragging Tommy with her. Each step seemed to echo in the void, chased by laughter that taunted their every effort. The light from the gazebo vanished behind them, swallowed by thickening shadows. The air grew heavy, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath, intent on hiding whatever lurked in the darkness. Mom! Tommy stumbled again, pulling away as panic gripped him tighter. Keep moving. She panted, feeling a sharp chill trace its way down her spine. The screams had faded, but Claire could still feel the sinister presence circling them, like wolves gearing up for the hunt. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush snapped her focus. Claire whirled around, eyes wide. The darkness twisted, contorting as if something was moving just beyond her sight. She caught a glimpse, a flash of pale skin, a smirk etched with promise and malice. Tommy, we need to go, she whispered urgently, pulling him along. But he hesitated, glancing back. I think I saw her again. He stammered. Who? Claire snapped, fear mixing with frustration. We don't have time. The lady, in the red dress. His voice trembled. She was right there. With trembling hands, she pushed through the branches, forcing the panic down. That's not our friend. Stay close. As they moved, the surroundings grew eerily still. Shadows seemed to congeal, their contours becoming more defined, taking on shapes that clawed at Claire's mind. Was that a face she saw in the distant dark? Or perhaps a figure, just beyond her vision, watching? The uncertainty gnawed at her heart, but she couldn't afford to dwell on it. Mom, I'm tired. Tommy breathed, slowing to a stagger. We can't stop, Tommy. She urged, keeping her voice steady despite the tremor she felt rising in her throat. Just a little bit longer. The underbrush gave way to a small clearing, an eerie patch of moonlight spilling onto the ground, illuminating the dance of mist swirling around their feet. It was too serene for the chaos that had preceded it, and Claire's instinct screamed at her that something was very wrong. Look! Tommy pointed, his face pale as he spotted something ahead. In the center of the clearing stood a weathered tree, gnarled and twisted, with roots that snaked through the ground like fingers reaching for something below. Around it, stones jutted from earth, cold and dark, each carved with faded symbols that seemed to pulse with life. What is that? Claire muttered, her breath hitching. It feels bad, Tommy said, taking a hesitant step back. Suddenly, the branches of the tree rustled violently, and Claire froze. From its hollow trunk emerged the figure, a twisted version of the woman they had encountered. A smirk still graced her face, but her features twisted, morphed by something darker that lay just under the surface. Welcome, her voice paralleled the wind's howl, carrying a melody that was both inviting and sinister. Run! Claire shouted, gripping Tommy's hand tightly. But all she felt was a cold steel grip around her heart, holding her in place, a compulsion growing stronger to step forward. From the depths of the shadows, other shapes stirred. Writhing shadows crept in closer, whispering words he couldn't understand but that clawed at the edges of Claire's mind. Mom, please! Tommy tugged at her arm, the terror in his eyes anchoring her in this nightmare. As the shadows lunged, Claire found a burst of strength, breaking her paralysis. This way! She yelled, dragging Tommy away just as laughter erupted behind them, mingling with the rustling of malignant branches. They turned a corner, heart racing, pulses pounding against the dread that thickened the air. But before long, another scream rumbled through the woods, this one distinctly Tommy's voice. Mom! His voice shattered the tension in the air, but then fell eerily silent. Tommy! She screamed, spinning on her heels, back toward the clearing, and there it was again, the woman in red, waiting at the edge of the light, staring straight through her. What had taken him? Was he lost to the shadows, to the darkness that had awakened? Desperation flooded Claire, propelling her into the unknown, toward the heartbeat of danger and dread. She pushed ahead, certain that the answers and the horrors awaited at every turn, but as she reached the clearing once more, breathless and terrified, the nursery rhyme of darkness twisted around her. "Follow me, sweet Claire. Come find your little boy." And with those words hanging in the air, Claire felt the encroaching darkness close in once more. Would she find him in time, or would the shadows claim them both? The truth she feared would reveal itself soon enough. Claire's heart thundered in her chest as she stood frozen in the clearing, the voice echoing around her like a taunt. "Come find your little boy." The word stirred something ancient within her, a primal urge to obey. Shadows wove together, swirling around her ankles like dark smoke. "Tommy!" She called again, her voice cracking. Fear gripped her tighter than any vine could. The darkness was alive, hungry. She turned to face the woman in the red dress, her silhouette sharp against the moonlight. "Where is he?" Claire's voice trembled but held the weight of desperation. The figure tilted her head, a grin splitting her porcelain face wide. "He is just ahead, if you dare to follow." With that, she gestured toward the thicket beyond the clearing, the shadows seeming to whisper promises of safety or perhaps deeper peril. The decision weighed on Claire, but the silence that followed Tommy's scream filled her with dread. What horrors could linger in that darkness? She thought of his face, wide-eyed and innocent, begging her to protect him. It stoked the flames of her resolve. Summoning every ounce of courage, Claire sprinted toward the thicket, branches tearing at her skin as if they were alive, trying to hold her back. The laughter of the woman echoed after her, a haunting lullaby that seemed to stretch and curl around her, urging her deeper into the woods. "Mom!" There it was again, clearer this time, filled with a mixture of fear and yearning. Claire pressed on, her breath coming in ragged gasps, the sounds of rustling leaves and snapping twigs filling the void. Suddenly, she stumbled into another clearing. This one was different. It was smaller, encircled by thick trunks and shrouded in mist, the ground slick with mud that drew her foot deeper with every step. In the center lay a stone altar, slick and wet, glistening under the pale light. A chill ran down her spine. Symbols carved into the altar matched those on the stones she'd seen earlier, their meanings twisted and unknown. What happened here? She murmured to herself, but the forest remained mute. "Tommy!" She called again, flicking her gaze around, desperate for any sign of him. The shadows seemed to dance, mocking her, until she caught sight of a delicate red ribbon caught on a thorny branch. It was the same one Tommy had worn. How did it end up here? A low growl rumbled from somewhere in the woods, chilling her blood. She could feel the darkness press against her, an oppressive weight from all sides. The laughter morphed into something sinister, sharpening into jagged notes that felt both near and far. "Mom!" The voice sounded closer now, but as Claire turned, something shifted behind her. A figure cloaked in shadows stepped forward. It was the woman in the red dress, closer this time, her lips curling into a smile that promised nothing but dread. "Have you come to play?" She cooed, advancing with an unnatural grace, the shadows parting in her wake. Claire stumbled back, her heart racing faster than before. "What do you want from me?" It came out as a part demand, part plea. "Your boy is just across the way," she sang, "but to reach him, you must join the game. There are rules, dear Claire, and they aren't meant for the faint of heart." The shadows thickened, wrapping around the woman like a cloak. Claire surveyed the clearing, the stones that pulsed with a malevolent energy, the altar calling out to her. What would she have to sacrifice to save Tommy? "Do you want the truth, or are you content in ignorance?" The woman's voice danced in the air, seducing and terrifying all at once. "Tell me what I must do to save him." Claire screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. The woman leaned closer, her face a mere breath away. "Follow the path you're afraid to take," and with that, she vanished into the mist, leaving Claire alone in the clearing. The shadows writhed around her, hungry for a choice. Would she dare to uncover the dark truths buried here, or would she turn away, leaving Tommy to fend for himself against whatever nightmare lurked on the other side. The pulse of the stones quickened, and in that moment, Claire realized the stakes were higher than she ever imagined. Would she brave the impending darkness to save her son, or would the shadows swallow them both whole? Claire's breath escaped her in shallow bursts. The shadows twisted and churned around her, thickening into swirling tendrils that reached for her with hungry fingers. The faint echo of the woman in the red dress still danced in her mind, each word a chilling reminder of the game that lay ahead. She had one choice: confront the darkness. Tommy! She shouted again, her voice raw, desperation surging through her. Nothing but silence answered. Clenching her fists, she waded deeper into the murky shadows, leaving the altar behind. With each step, the air grew heavy, thick with a scent of damp earth and something far more sinister. She moved toward a narrow path lined with gnarled trees, their branches reaching down like skeletal hands. Whispers brushed against her ears, words spilling in hasty breaths that sent shivers racing down her spine. Find him, give in to the darkness. Claire shook her head, trying to dispel the maddening call. But the shadows pulsed under her skin, and she could feel them tugging at her heart. The wild fear that gripped her mind twisted into certainty that Tommy was close. Her feet pounded against the soft ground, slick with moisture. The trees thinned, and before her lay a dimly lit hollow, an embrace of secrecy. Flickering lights danced like fireflies in the periphery, yet they felt cold, mocking her with their flicker. Just ahead, she whispered to herself, as she stepped into the clearing, her gaze darting back and forth for any sign of her son. The light grew around her, revealing another altar, but this one was smaller, adorned with objects that made her stomach turn. Dolls with cracked porcelain faces, tattered clothing, eyes that seemed to follow her every movement. Tommy was all she could manage. Suddenly, something darted from behind the tree line, a flash of color, a familiar red. The ribbon. Tommy! She dashed forward, reaching for the ribbon, but it vanished into the underbrush before she could touch it. Her heart sank as darkness swirled around her, pulling at her feet. The laughter returned, now a cacophony of cruel mockery. Play the game, Claire, you want him, don't you? Stop it! She screamed, grounding herself in defiance. Tell me where he is. The whisper turned sinister. What will you sacrifice? From the depth of her fear, Claire wrenched out her answer. No. I won't sacrifice anything. I'll find him. For a fleeting moment, everything fell quiet. The stillness settled around her like a blanket, but shadows trailed at her feet, patiently waiting for her resolve to crumble. Then choose wisely, the voice hissed in the silence, darker now, filled with malice. The woods know all your secrets, all your fears. Gritting her teeth, Claire felt the weight of the forest pressing down. Would she dare confront whatever lurked in the depths of her own soul? Or would she surrender, letting the shadows and secrets claim her son? In that weight of silence, an icy tendril slithered behind her, brushing against the nape of her neck. She turned and gasped, meeting the gaze of the woman in red, now standing quietly beside the altar. Her smile was sharp, like glass, as she gestured toward the twisted path that branched away into darkness. Will you step into the shadows now? The shadows beckoned again. Claire stood at the edge of desperation, torn between the hope of saving her boy and the terror that awaited her below. What awaited her in the depths of her fear? Time hung heavy as anticipation clawed at her, breathless and taut, the real game about to begin. Would she dare take the first step, or would the darkness swallow them both whole? Claire hesitated, the weight of the woman's gaze pinning her in place. She could feel the shadows creeping in closer, curling around her legs with a suffocating grip. What had she gotten herself into? The laughter echoed again, cruel and taunting, sending cold spikes of fear racing through her. What do you want from me? She demanded, though her voice trembled. The woman in red tilted her head, the fabric of her dress shimmering under the faint light. Her grin stretched wider, revealing teeth too white against the abyss of her features. You must choose, she purred, her voice like silk over sharp stones. Join the game or lose more than you could ever imagine. The forest sighed, the branches rustling, whispering secrets that Claire couldn't decipher. She could almost hear Tommy's cries, faint and distant, pulling at her heart. But was it really him? Or just another trick of the darkness? What's my choice? Claire forced out. Show me what I have to do. She could feel her chest tightening. Every instinct told her to turn away, to run back, to seek safety in the mundane life she'd taken for granted. Walk deeper into the shadows, the woman instructed, her smile still ethereal. Embrace the fear, and only then will the truth be revealed. Claire's mind raced. The shadows were alive, and they promised visions of what lay hidden, but at what cost? For a moment, she saw Tommy's face in her mind, bright and innocent, and it propelled her forward. She stepped toward the path, brushing past the woman in red, who laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The path twisted, engulfing her in darkness. The flickering lights receded behind her, and in their place, the air thickened a musty, choking weight. Each step felt heavier, as though the ground itself yearned to pull her under. "Tommy, where are you?" she whispered, the sound swallowed by the darkness. As Claire moved deeper, the whispers surged, now chaotic and sharp, slicing through her thoughts. "She'll never find him, she'll never leave." The words wrapped around her, sowing doubt. She halted, heart racing, spine prickling. The effects of the shadows were real, they twisted her fears like a noose. "What do you know about me?" she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. The darkness chuckled, but the sound morphed, transforming into one that was unmistakably Tommy's, a high-pitched laugh that resounded through the trees. It sparked a dull hope, but trust had no place here. One flicker of false joy would be enough to break her. "Claire! Come play with me." The voice edged on a taunt, and she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, like a heartbeat waiting to explode. As she stumbled forward, the world spun each moment as hazy as the last. Shadows twisted around her legs like vines drawn to light. Then it hit her, an icy realization: the darkness did not just hunger for her fear, it celebrated it. It thrived in every moment of dread she felt. The path before her narrowed, and in the distance, flickers of light glowed with a fierce intensity. Shapes moved, indistinct, promising revelation and despair in equal measure. With her heart in her throat, Claire pushed onward, feeling each breath wrestle with an unseen force. "Find him, find your truth," the voice whispered again, echoing around her, stirring something buried beneath her resolve. What was the truth waiting for her in this suffocating dark? The flickers formed into figures, disfigured silhouettes that shifted and coiled, and terror struck a new chord within her. Shadowy faces loomed, each one twisted with a silent scream, horror etched deep within their features. "Choose." They chanted, the word a haunting mantra, vibrating through the very marrow of her bones. Suddenly, from behind, Claire felt a whisper of warmth brush against her cheek. "Tommy." She turned sharply, breath catching. There, a shadowy flicker, a fleeting glimpse of red hair darting among the trees, throwing her heart into overdrive. In that moment of fleeting hope, Claire felt a chill creep up her spine. Had she stepped into a net woven with desperation? And would she find her son or lose herself in the darkness forever? As the veils of shadow rushed in to envelop her, she had only one choice left: to confront the light or let the darkness claim everything she held dear. What awaited her in that flickering glow? And would it be salvation or the final embrace of terrible truth? The air grew thicker as Claire warily approached the flickering glow. Each step pulled her deeper into the abyss, her heart pounding in tempo with the whispers surrounding her. "Find him," they echoed, relentless and pleading, stoking the fire of her fear. She squinted against the haze, trying to discern the shapes that danced in the light ahead. Her instincts screamed for her to turn back, to flee from the torment and uncertainty, but Tommy's laughter rolled through her like thunder, a siren's call that grasped her by the throat. She resisted the urge to scream his name. The joke could be on her, a cruel twist of the darkness meant to lead her astray. As she walked, the shadows shifted, swirling violently around her, their icy tendrils grazing her skin. "You'll never escape," one hissed, its voice a whisper of her own insecurities. "He's lost just like you." "Shut up." Claire choked out, fury igniting her resolve. "I will find him." She quickened her pace, the light ahead looming larger, transforming from flickers into a blaring beacon. Just then, a scream sliced through the din, raw and ragged. It froze Claire in her tracks. It was a familiar sound, a mother's worst nightmare. "Tommy!" she cried, the name blasting out of her against her will. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if they were testing her resolve. "Come home, Mommy." The voice that replied was tainted with sweetness and malice, wrapping around her heart like cold iron. Furious whispers filled the void. Figures emerged, faces shrouded in darkness, their eyes glowing like dying embers. They pointed fingers at her, their mouths twisted in silent mockery. "Choose." But the glow, it pulsed with the promise of hope. Claire summoned every ounce of bravery she could muster and rushed toward it. The shadows writhed, attempting to latch onto her, clawing at her legs, desperate to drag her back. "Tommy!" she called again, louder this time. "I'm coming. Just hold on." The warmth flickered, a heartbeat that ignited the deepest recess of her fear, a fire that could either consume her or lead the way out. As she neared, the light converged, revealing a clearing filled with what appeared to be lost children. They stood, their faces distorted in agony, shadows hovering around them like specters. She recognized some children she had seen in town, the ones whispered about in tales of the cursed land. But were they truly lost? Or had the darkness taken them? No. Claire gauged the malevolence of the atmosphere, growing heavy with despair. "I want to be a part of this." The air crackled, filled with the tension of a string about to snap. With a rush of adrenaline, Claire thrust herself into the center of the shimmering light. It wrapped around her like a warm embrace, strong enough to hold back the cloying shadows. She could sense an energy ether-like, vibrant. It pulsated with urgency, urging her to look closer, but the moment she did, horror struck. Tommy was not among them, his laughter fading into frantic silence. Instead, she saw glimpses of herself as a child, lost and wandering in the dark, screaming for her own mother. Was this what she was becoming? "Join us." The shrouded figures behind her howled, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of haunting cries. "You're just like us. You'll never escape." A light flickered in the depths of her heart, igniting a fierce determination. "No!" Claire shouted, her voice ringing with raw power. "I am not you." The force of her defiance surged through her, slashing through the shadows that lunged, wrapping tightly around her. The colors of the clearing swirled, reality bending. With one last surge, Claire peered into the blinding light and felt it beckon. It promised more than danger, it offered the chance to face the darkness inside her, the choice of who she would become. Then suddenly, everything collapsed. The light shattered, the darkness rushed in, cold and consuming. Claire gasped, feeling hands clawing at her heart, pulling her under as the light faded away. But in that last breath, a spark ignited a vivid image of Tommy's face, radiant and unbroken. And then, inexplicably, a single voice rose above the chaos, clearer than all the others. "Mommy, I believe in you." What did that mean, and could it guide her through the gloom? As the shadows pulled her deeper, Claire's world spun into a dizzying spiral of hope and despair, leading her to an unsettling decision. Would she sacrifice everything she knew in search of her son, or would she become one with the darkness? In that critical moment, one thought pierced through the murky depths: the true game had only just begun. The darkness engulfed her, a suffocating shroud whispering her fears back at her. Claire felt the cold winding around her throat, tightening like a vice. A part of her wanted to succumb, to surrender to the shadows that offered an escape from the relentless turmoil of the hunt. But the other part, Tommy's face burning in her mind, shouted louder than the shadows could smother. With a surge of desperation, she fought against the shadows clawing at her, heart racing like a furious drum. "I'm coming!" she cried, not knowing if she shouted to him or herself. But the shadows laughed, a deep, rolling sound that reverberated through her bones. "Come to us, Claire they slithered close, oozing with deceptive comfort. Leave the chase. It's endless. He's gone. No, the word slipped from her lips, barely a whisper, but the conviction behind it glimmered. I won't believe you. In that instant, something shifted. The ground beneath her feet felt like it was melting, the figures surrounding her swaying and flickering as if caught in a hazy dream. Then, she heard it again, a soft giggle, familiar and light, like the joyous sound of wind chimes. Mommy! Help! It was Tommy's voice. The shadows hissed in anger, curling outward, but Claire pushed forward, cutting through the icy cold as if she were carved from steel. Nothing would keep her from him. Where are you? Claire screamed, her voice piercing the darkness. The shadows reacted, recoiling, creating a pathway. A violent thrill rushed through her. She dashed down this narrow escape, feet pounding against the eerie silence until she burst through into another clearing. This place was different, alive with a sinister glow. The trees twisted into impossibly grotesque shapes, branches stretching out like claws ready to snatch her back. Gnarled roots snaked around her ankles, pulling at her, but she tore herself free, gasping for breath. And there he was. Tommy stood in the center, his back turned. Claire's heart leaped, but then it sank. He looked like a mirror reflection, his small body framed by flickering shadows. This couldn't be real, could it? Tommy! She called out, but as she did, her voice shattered, echoes twisting into taunting laughter. Mommy, why did you take so long? His voice sounded innocent, but there was an undercurrent of something dark. Her stomach lurched. The ground beneath Tommy began to churn, black tendrils swarming up like hungry snakes, anchoring him to the cursed earth. Claire rushed forward, desperation surging. No! Let him go. He's mine. The shadows around her howled, angry and pleading, as if their very existence bridged the gap between despair and hope. You can have him, but at a price. What price? She demanded, fists clenched. I'd give anything to save him. The figure of Tommy turned slowly, the glow casting sharp angles across his face. But his eyes were not his own, dark pools swirling, filled with sorrow and rage. Let go of your light to save him. A cold chill spread throughout Claire. No. I refuse. The idea of surrendering even the smallest flicker of light churned her stomach. Mommy, help. Tommy's voice faltered, a thin veil of agony breaking through. She reached out, feeling the pull of both him and the shadows, like a riptide dragging her under, pulling at her very essence. The price of salvation was clear. To find her son, she had to forfeit herself. No. She screamed, innocence suffocating her. I won't trade one darkness for another. But before she could retreat, the ground shook violently. The shadows hissed, anger morphing into rage, and the clearing twisted. The face of Tommy turned grim, the resemblance melding with something sinister as the darkness encroached closer. Visions flooded her mind, children lost, mothers weeping, an endless cycle of despair. The whispers clawed back at her resolve. Join us, her heart thundered, the walls of reality splintering around her. Tommy! She cried, diving toward him, ignoring the shadows racing to seize her. But just as her fingers grazed the air where he stood, the world erupted in a blinding flash. She was thrown back. Sucked into the void of despair, darkness enveloping her completely. A chilling voice echoed through the chaos, your choice will determine your fate, choose wisely. Trapped within the suffocating void, Claire closed her eyes against the encroaching panic. A moment of stillness enveloped her, and then dark laughter cackled from every corner. Suddenly, like a flickering candle fighting the wind, a realization struck her: what awaited next could change everything. Would she choose to embrace the dark, or would she fight to reclaim her light? And what, exactly, could that choice cost? The darkness bore down on Claire, squeezing her heart like a vice. She felt the laughter echo through the void, twisting like a knife, each cruel jest reminding her of what she stood to lose. Your choice will determine your fate. Choose wisely. The shadows flickered, pressing against her from all sides, whispering promises of power and safety if she surrendered to the darkness. But inside, something roared to life. You're not taking him from me, she shouted defiantly, the urgency of her love for Tommy piercing the suffocating haze. In that moment, determination surged through her, lighting a fire within. Tommy needed her. He had always needed her. She wouldn't fail him now. With a fierce resolve, she braced herself against the shadows pulling at her limbs, and she took a deep breath, focusing solely on her son. Tommy! She screamed, willing her voice to pierce the veil between them. I will fight for you. I want to let you go. The darkness howled in anger, shrieking at the seams as the very ground beneath her trembled. Tendrils curled back, drawn away from her, as if they needed permission to touch her resolve. Through the swirling shadows, she spotted him once more, his small figure wavering on the edge of her sight. Mommy! He cried, his voice now a beacon, desperate yet full of strength. In that blissful moment of clarity, Claire could see the core of the darkness surrounding him, an ancient curse stitched into the very fabric of Eldridge Hollow. Each shadow was a lost child, a mother's grief, each one a piece of the past that sought to claim her son. But she wouldn't let them. She wouldn't let her fears dictate his fate. The oppressive weight began to lift as she surged forward. Strands of light broke through the darkness, each one fueled by her loving tenacity. You will not take my son. I choose love. I choose light. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from deep within, illuminating every shadow in its wake. The figures around her recoiled, shrieking in fear. The twisted mockery of Tommy began to dissolve, unraveling into the onslaught of brilliance. All the memories, the love she fought for, the dreams of a better life, all surged forth, illuminating the horror surrounding them in radiant clarity. Run to me, Tommy! Claire commanded, her voice ringing louder, laced with the power of 1,000 mothers before her. She felt the shadows ripping at her flesh, but it was no longer a fearsome thing, it was a passage, tearing open a path to her son. In the bright chaos, she saw him slip free from the shadow's grasp, stumbling towards her. Their gazes locked, and for a brief instant, time felt tangible, raw, and overflowing with unconditional love. Mommy, I'm scared. He whimpered as he raced into her outstretched arms. She crushed him to her, feeling the warmth and weight of him grounding her back to what mattered most. I know, baby. I'm here. I'll never leave you again. Claire felt the surge growing inside her, pushing against the weight of the shadows that had held them captive. It was time to reclaim what belonged to her. With one final surge of will, Claire pulled in the light bursting forth from her heart, sweeping away the darkness like a gust of wind. The air exploded, blasting through the woods, sending the shadows spiraling into oblivion. Claire lifted her chin high, tears streaming down her cheeks, embracing the radiant glow of truth. The wind sang around them, swirling into laughter of freedom, as the cursed forest began to unravel, releasing the souls trapped within its grasp. Claire's heart swelled as she felt each tether sever, each anguished spirit glowing, freed from the chains of Eldridge Hollow. Together, they moved toward the edge of the clearing, stepping into a wash of brilliant light that replaced the darkness. Let us go home, she whispered, as hope flooded through her. The curse was broken, the wickedness of the town beaten by her devotion. As they emerged from the woods, the dawn light crept in, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. They stood together on the threshold of Eldridge Hollow, renewed under a sun that shone with the promise of rebirth. Mom. Tommy's voice seeped into her heart, gentle and innocent. She looked down at him, resolved in their victory over darkness. How about we call it a new beginning? Claire replied, ruffling his hair, the echoes of their dread replaced by hope. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the light, leaving behind the shadows, victorious in their love. Eldridge Hollow would never be the same again, but neither would they. It would become a place of strength, where love triumphed over fear, marking the beginning of a new story for Claire and Tommy. As they walked away from the haunting remnants of the past, a flicker of red lace danced momentarily in the breeze behind them, just a whisper in the wind, as if acknowledging their resolve. So, if you felt that pulse of tension, guess what? There's more to explore. You need to subscribe now to catch each thrilling twist and turn we unveil next. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm. Let us turn the comments into a chatter of reactions, theories. What did you think of Claire's victory? Did you feel her pain and hope? Now's the time to speak out, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the light far and wide.